When I was around the age of 9, I caught a glimpse of this show that aired at night that showcased people from different walks of life in a jungle. Little did I know at the time that it would be this glimpse that would kickstart my journey into a series I still hold close to my heart, though the size depends on the day you ask me this question, Survivor. Now, my first season that I watched to completion was Pearl Island, the 7th season of the show. 7th. We're like, 40 seasons in now? Almost 60 in my timeline? Yeah, safe to say, I've been a big fan of this property, but I've never really had the chance to talk about it since my channel focuses on animation, movies, and manga pretty much. However, since this channel is not my job anymore, or dead, I figured now would be the time to discuss this property I've liked since, well, I was a kid. Or at least the very first season of it. I don't want the channel to rot that fast. But why this series particularly, and not other shows? After all, it's just reality TV set in the jungle, or in later series, Fiji Islands. And while that is very much true, what initially drew me in was seeing people from different walks of life either work together, or go against each other in fun, colorful challenges.
Here we go, a storm is approaching!
Then, as I grew older, I appreciated other elements, like the storytelling, the characters/contestants, and the eliminations themselves, to name a few. Hell, as someone who spent their early years with only people of my skin color, it was really fucking cool to see people of different skin color on this show. It's like my world opened up in a sense. That's really fucking great. And yes, I do sound like a total loser right now. You must be new to the channel. In all seriousness, though, let's dive in and see if the show's very first season still holds up today. Initially based on the Swedish show Expedition Robinson, or just Robinson nowadays, this show takes 16 contestants from all different walks of life and throws them into Borneo, Malaysia with barely any supplies, where they must survive for 39 days amidst the animals of the island, rough weather and temperatures, and of course, themselves. As every 3 days, one of them is voted off of the island until one is left standing and is declared the winner of the season. It's a simple concept, but it works really well here. It's not just seeing how they survive the wilderness. Plenty of shows and media did that long before this came out. It's also seeing how they come together to outwit, outplay, and outlast their fellow contestants, which I think is part of the reason the show is still going to this day. And there are many ways the cast members do this. Some laze around, some bark orders like they're the boss of a company, and others form an alliance. The latter of which ends up becoming the most effective means as all the members of the Tagi 4, the very first alliance in Survivor, make it to the final 4, after picking off everyone from the opposing tribe first, defined nowadays as a Pagonging, and funnily enough, some of the people on the show weren't even mad at being picked off by an alliance. Some of them were just mad they didn't do it too, like with Jervis's last words. That being said, on the topic of Pagonging, that leads to a problem I noticed on my rewatch. For the first half of this game, prior to the merger, it got pretty repetitive on who ended up being safe, as it was Pagong first, then Tagi, lather, rinse, repeat until merge, and even the merge got repetitive, as it was just basically watching a Pagong member go by every episode until all of them were out, and then it was just a matter of watching Sean go by, and then we just had the finale. Sure, it was an effective way to establish how strong the alliance would be in the game, but as a viewer, it got repetitive really fast. Sure, there was the barbecue alliance that lasted for like 5 minutes, but that amounted to nothing in the end. Fortunately, this was an issue that did end up getting fixed in later seasons. As more alliances got formed, tribe swaps happened that shook up the status quo, and it ended up spicing up the game for the better. On the topic of issues, however, the challenges for this season are pretty simple and short. Granted, some of them can be effective and also good, such as the very first challenge, Quest for Fire, because that one is shot very well, and having them light torches quickly is handled pretty well. The Bug Eating Challenge is also a simple and effective one that works. It's seen as a classic for a reason by not only fans of the series, but also those who created parodies/inspirations of Survivor, like Total Drama Island, or that Pokemon one. I wonder who contributed to that trend. But other challenges are pretty lackluster, such as Rescue Mission, where they have to use a stretcher to pull one of their teammates out of the forest, or End of the Line, where they have to run through a maze basically. The problem with these two challenges is that they feel more luck-based than anything, as with the former, one team could have a harder time because the forest is more rugged to travel through than the other team, and the latter suffers from too many alternating paths that can also lead to dead ends randomly. Fast Fire is another example of a lackluster challenge, and I'm glad it got downgraded to a tiebreaker challenge in later seasons, because it feels too small to be a reward/immunity challenge in this series. Also, this challenge was just a massive fucking dick to Jarvis because his torch kept going out for no reason at points. Then again, he did make that sexist remark towards women in a previous episode, so hey, maybe that was just nature's way of saying he fucked up for that. Even the final challenge is kind of lackluster, as it's basically just holding onto the immunity idol with barely any change or temptation to let go outside of fruit and water. Two things they have for a majority of the game, mind you. Yeah, I could see why this was shelved after the 8th season. But yeah, much like the problem I mentioned earlier, this issue did get fixed in later seasons, so this can be boiled down to growing pains basically. Not a huge issue, but a noticeable blemish. With that said, there is another blemish I noticed watching through this season again. 3 of the eliminations make no sense in context to the show/episode, which is unfortunate because the other eliminations are great/make sense. So what are the 3? First off, Sonya's elimination. It makes little sense because she only slowed the team down by a tiny bit, and she barely did anything that made her a problem to the tribe. Maybe this issue was due to the fact that the episode's only an hour long and not 2 hours like later seasons would end up doing, but from what I was shown, Sonya barely did anything that warranted her leaving first. But that's just me. The next elimination I took issue with was Joel's. Specifically because, like Sonya, he barely did anything that warranted him leaving prior to the episode he went home in. Then, when the episode where he did go home came out, suddenly he's a chauvinist and a pain in the ass. I'm sorry, where did this come from exactly? This especially is head-tilting considering in the very same episode, Jervis, who was just lazing around for most of the fucking season and couldn't even swim well, mind you, makes a really sexist remark that pisses off the tribe, and yet he stays over Joel? Make this make sense to me. I feel like my brain's rotting. Finally, Colleen's elimination makes a little sense, considering that the Toggy 4 Kellyless edition were saying that Sean would go if Kelly was safe, yet Colleen went home anyways. Where did that come from exactly? It especially makes little sense when you consider that nothing would change outside of swapping Sean and Colleen's eliminations from 5th and 6th to 6th and 5th respectively. Both were not winning the game anyways. Plus, Sean was pretty much throwing the game by this point anyways, and Colleen's chances of winning a challenge were about as likely as me being funny. But I digress. Outside of the ones I mentioned, there's not a whole lot of issues with this season, and even then, most of what I described as issues are pretty much just it being basic, or blemishes. But how are the characters? Well, this is where it shines in fucking spades, and it gets better with later seasons. So for this section, I'm gonna give my thoughts on every contestant by elimination order. Here we go. Sonya. She was okay. Like I said earlier, she didn't really exhibit any traits that warranted her being a threat/detriment to the tribe outside of that one screw-up, so frankly, she could have gone further. BB, God rest his soul, was the hard-ass wannabe leader of the group that became insufferable as the episodes went on, and he basically gave up playing by episode 2, wanting his tribe to oust him the next time they lost. Yeah, unlike another contestant I'll mention later, BB didn't adapt to his tribe or try to fit in with them, and it clearly cost him in the end. Stacy was also a hard-ass to Rudy and was also incredibly lazy. Outside of that, she was just a pain, and frankly, I loved it when in the first episode, Sue pretty much calls out Stacy's ass for bitching about Rudy barking when she hasn't done shit. Needless to say, Sue is base. Ramona was incredibly forgettable. She barely did anything due to her sickness for most of the time she was on, and by the time she got better, it was her elimination episode, so she was effectively wasted. Even the bio part of her job title didn't want to be a part of this, as it floats away from her description after the first episode. Dirk. He's religious, and also got into conflicts with Rich because he's gay. Pretty sure God views sloth as a sin, yet Dirk had no issue being that on his season. Outside of that, yeah, he deserved the boot because he was useless. Much like the deity he prays to. Did you forget heat doesn't work on me, you stupid, useless shit? Joel. Like I said earlier, this guy barely did anything, and so I have not much to say on this character. Gretchen. Liked her well enough, but good lord, she was stubborn about making an alliance, and frankly, it would have made the merge portion of the game more interesting if she did team up with some members of Bagong to rival Toggy's alliance. Greg is a ray of sunshine who is entertaining in almost every scene he's in, and was very likable from start to finish, and frankly, it sucked to see him go. But hey, it was nice to see him on the jury, and his jury question at the end of the season, really good shit.
Number between 1 and 10.
21.
Jenna. Only memorable thing about her was her not getting a tape from her family. Remind me again why she got invited for All-Stars? Jervis. Started off fine enough, but he started to get very annoying as the season went on, and his remark regarding women as the stupidest thing on the planet next to cows was fucking cringe, to put it nicely. Then again, his blood versus water performance also sucked ass, and nice to see things never change with this guy. Colleen was also pretty likable, and I do give her credit for being the last Bagong member standing. Pity though she never wanted to return for later seasons. Sean.
This guy's throwing, dude!
Legit though, outside of the alphabet strategy, and even that gets abandoned after a bit, the only thing he really does is make the Super Bowl 2000, which couldn't even catch one fish. This guy was flat out useless and got way too much screen time for someone who barely contributed to the overall game. Sue. I really liked Sue in this. She doesn't take anybody's shit as showcased with her calling out Stacy's stupidity. She had a good social game and chemistry with the Toggy 4, which she was frankly a riot this season. And of course, it'd be wrong of me if I ignored the Snakes and Rats speech in the final Tribal Council. Such a good speech that symbolizes the final two contestants very well in terms of how they played their game. Richard the arrogant snake, and Kelly the two-faced rat. And it also does a good job as a plea to the jury to vote how nature itself dictates, for the snake to eat the rat. Which almost went the other way if Kelly answered with an 8, 9, or 10, considering the winner was separated by 1 vote this season. But yeah, Sue was really good. Now on to Rudy, who's complicated to talk about. On the one hand, he's a homophobic curmudgeon. But on the other hand, he tells it like it is, was willing to adapt and change to get by in the game, slashing with his tribe, as shown with him initially being against joining the Alliance, but later joining up as time went on, and he's someone that can be trusted. Hell, his dynamic with Richard Hatch was one of the best of the season, despite the two coming from different worlds, basically, and despite Richard being gay and Rudy not liking the gays, so you'd think those two wouldn't get along, but they really did. Yes, comments he made haven't aged well at all, especially in modern day, but he did start to adapt and change in terms of his gameplay and social game as the season went on. In the end, it's complicated for me to say that I liked or disliked Rudy, but that doesn't mean he didn't leave any impact on me while watching, because he absolutely did. Both the positive and negative one. Godspeed, Rudy. Complicated curmudgeon. Finally, that leaves the final two. Kelly was a fine enough player. I liked the heel-face turn she basically did later on in the series, and she was really good in challenges. The problem is that her social game, especially in the final Tribal Council, sucked. However, she was still a good opponent for Richard to face off against. Not sure if I'd call her winner material though, but I guess that's an argument for the comment section. That leaves me with the winner, Richard Hatch. He's arrogant, pompous, a massive pain in the ass, but he was a love-to-hate pain in the ass, honestly. Having some of the best gameplay / strategic moves of the season, being responsible for effectively birthing the powerful Toggy 4 alliance, he was basically entering as a chess master, while everyone else was basically playing checkers. Richard was great. Now, if only he paid his taxes, and didn't do, frankly, most of the things he did in All-Stars. But yeah, the cast was overall pretty good for the most part, and that's one of the big reasons I keep coming back to the show, even during the weak moments of the show's history. If you got a good cast of characters from different walks of life trying to work together while also trying to win a game and also change, you got my fucking interest. Speaking of interest though, holy shit, the soundtrack of Borneo fucking slaps! Whether it be the Tribal Council music, the rites of passage music that plays when the final three remember their fallen comrades, an aspect that I really miss in the newer seasons, by the way, but I digress. The challenge music or the theme song itself, ancient voices, it's really damn good. Once that tribal chant hits, capped off with the yo, I'm fucking singing that shit, and getting called cringe while doing it, but that's not new for me, so yeah, I don't care, that shit is bombing. Sure, the initial season of Survivor doesn't have a lot of the crazy shit seen in the modern seasons, like Hidden Immunity Idols, Redemption Island, or its Great Value version Edge of Extinction, or uber deep alliances, or blindsides every other episode, but it's still a really good show from start to finish, and I had a lot of fun rewatching this piece of my childhood again.
No, I'm homosexual.
Never mind, better make a bunch of videos calling the show woke pandering garbage, it's gonna die off. Yeah, wanna find out how to spot fake fans of Survivor? They make videos like this. Bonus points if they never made videos on Survivor prior to 41 and 42 coming out. And are acting offended for clicks while also censoring themselves because they need to earn their 2 nickels from Big Daddy YouTube.
And that's the wokeness of Survivor.
Shut up, bitch!
Sorry, not sorry. And now that I've burned enough bridges today, I will take my leave. So I'm David Grimm, and thank you all for watching.